Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Goyas, or Danny Goyas, and today I am going to be presenting my presentation on global warming. So first, to start off, every single day, and it's likely that every single one of us have heard about global warming. This is something we live with in our everyday lives, but we still have to answer the question, what is global warming? So to start off, global warming has been observed since the pre-industrial period. This is somewhere around the years of 1850 through the 1900s. And ultimately, by definition, global warming is the long-term heating effect of the Earth's climate, which is most likely due to human activities. This includes things such as coal burning, automobile emissions, greenhouse gases, and others. These gas emissions cover the Earth as a type of blanket, which eventually gets trapped by the sun's thermal heat and leads to the warming of the Earth, and has many negative effects that we will get into later on. But just some of them to mention right off the bat are melting glaciers and rising water levels throughout the world. So we got to next ask ourselves, what are the causes of global warming? Well, right now there are about two main causes to global warming that we talk about. The first one would be pollution. Pollution creates more carbon dioxide and adds more gas that eventually gets trapped in the Earth's atmosphere. So ultimately, pollution, that's why it's not a good thing, because when pollution is released, it creates carbon dioxide, which in turn leads to global warming. The other main cause, and ultimately probably the biggest cause, is greenhouse gases and emissions. The main cause of global warming is due to greenhouse gases, which come from power generating plants and manufacturing goods from all over the world. This is ultimately probably the worst, because what it does is we burn a lot of fossil fuels in this process, so things such as coal, oil, natural gas. And this ultimately emits more gases into the atmosphere, which kind of lands up also creating more global warming in the long term. A graph where we can kind of see this visually, and where all these percentages are coming from, and how much greenhouse gases are being made and where. It can be seen in this graph. So electricity and heat, 31%, bunker fuels, 2%, land use change in forestry, 6%, waste, 3%. Agriculture is 11%, which this is actually a pretty decent sized number. Industrial processes, 6, fugitive emissions, 5, other fuel combustion, 9%, and then transportation, 15, construction and manufacturing, 12. So as we can see, our electricity and heat definitely takes up the biggest, about a third of all greenhouse gases, but there are some other sectors that also contribute a lot. So earlier, we kind of talked about the consequences behind global warming and how they can destabilize our climate and lives. As you can see here, there is a full list of possible negative consequences that can ultimately come out of climate change, but I'll just go through some of them. Conflict and war, rising sea levels, financial loss, increased volcanic ash, toxic air pollution, droughts, and many more. Uh, so the main consequences would be the change in weather and higher temperatures. So storms are starting to intensify by increasing moisture trapped in the air, and evaporation intensifies as the temperature rises, and thus creates hurricanes and harsh rainfall, which in the long term can devastate crops and overall food production. Number two would be heat waves and increased sea levels, with heat getting trapped in the atmosphere and increases the temperature around us, making it hotter, and causes glaciers, icebergs, and snow to melt and leak into the sea, which increases water levels. And increased water level ultimately lead to decreased landmass. And number three, some other effects are oceans becoming more acidic, wildlife having more trouble to survive, dirty air, and many more natural disasters. The most affected is just about everyone in the world, but as it says, we are all affected by global warming, but these countries are the most vulnerable to the consequences, such as deaths, extreme weather, and economic loss. So the top 5 countries that are most affected by climate change in the 21st century are Puerto Rico, Pakistan, the Philippines, Haiti, and Myanmar. So, you can kind of read under these, but you can see how many people would be or are affected by climate change and extreme weather events, and how this could negatively impact those sections of the population and how much at risk they are if climate change were to get worse. So the main contributors to climate change and global warming by country, this is just a graph I picked up from the Union of Concerned Scientists. And so 28% of global warming comes from China, the rest of the world, about 21%, the United States 15, India 7, Russia Federation, and then everyone else listed here is about 1 to 2%. But ultimately, we can see that the United States and China are probably the two biggest players when it comes to global warming, and that's due to their massive industrialism and economy. So global warming is responsible or linked to an average of 5 million deaths per year. So in this visual, we can see severe weather can lead to injury, fatalities, air pollution to asthma, cardiovascular disease, vector-borne disease. This is from weather extremes, leads to these allergies, respiratory allergies, and many more. You know, as we can see, climate change can affect us in many ways, even in our mental health, which can lead to anxiety, depression, other things. So ultimately, what we can see from this visual is that the negative effects are more than just physical. They can be much more and can ultimately lead to negative human health effects and environmental health effects. So ultimately, what can we do? Well, it's time to do something, obviously. It shouldn't have come this far for us to realize that it has, and now it's time for us to keep doing our part and step up. There are many things we can do to reduce global warming and keep our planet and everything living on it safe. There are just a few things we need to accomplish out of many. So some tips are: be water wise, make sure you're careful with how much water you use, just be reasonable. Reduce your waste, make sure you recycle, make sure your waste ends up in trash cans where they can be properly disposed of. Energy saving, just try not to run out of electricity, just be very modest with your usage, travel green, if you can, ride a bike, walk around, just try to, or take public transportation, just try to, not take your car everywhere you go. Clean energy, this is something that the United States is investing a lot of money into. So that's something to look forward to. And then small changes such as just taking care of the environment and the trees and the ecosystem around you will ultimately help lead to a better and cleaner environment and hopefully reduce climate change. So with that, that's all I have. And I'd like to thank you. And yeah.